Welcome to Mission Partners International. This is Faith Woods, and here on our channel, we talk about why there's poverty in Ukraine, we tell stories of real people living in poverty in Ukraine, and we share what we can all do to fight this rising problem. Until recently, not many people have thought about Ukraine, talked about Ukraine, or even sought to understand its unique character, its history, or the needs of her people. Outside of the Ukrainian diaspora, Ukraine's people have largely gone unnoticed by the world. Yet, Ukraine has a long and fascinating history. It's also one of the poorest countries in all of Europe. Their economy has struggled enormously with making a stable, living wage possible for most of its citizens. If you like our content, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Now, we know you all want to hear more about this issue of poverty in Ukraine, so here's the latest. Some people like broad strokes explanations. They want to have a simplified answer like people in Ukraine live in poverty because of XYZ. Unfortunately, it's really hard to generalize about something as complicated as poverty. But here it is as simply as I can state it. Millions of people in Ukraine live in poverty every day. Their economy is controlled by the elite, the oligarchy. In Eastern Europe, the growth towards political democracy or economic free enterprise, it just hasn't happened in a straight line. There have been some improvements everywhere, yes. Some Eastern European countries have fared better. Those who are now part of the EU are generally in better economic shape. But those old habits are really hard to break. So, what about poverty in Ukraine today? What's causing the poverty that we're seeing in the lives right now? Unlike the historical pattern in the West, right now there's actually a lot of coverage about Ukraine. Everyone is talking about the potential Russian invasion. The media focuses on the political maneuverings of the big players like the US, the EU, NATO, and even my own country of Canada. Now, we've been talking to our partners regularly, of course. We want to make sure that we're aware of how the political events are playing out in Ukraine. But the truth is, what we really care most about is how these larger geopolitical events are actually affecting the average everyday Ukrainian. I'm not Ukrainian, though many people ask me that. Yet after traveling there many times over the last 20 years, I've come to love Ukraine, her people. I deeply respect the long and colorful history and their unique culture. Despite being repeatedly swallowed up by imperialistic schemes of other surrounding nations, Ukrainians are fiercely proud of their culture, their language, and their nation. Most average people, they don't care about the politics of issues. They do care if they can eat, if they can stay warm, be safe. Millions of people in Ukraine don't have access to that predictability. They say that eyewitness testimony is the most reliable form of evidence. So, with that in mind, remember when I talk about people living in poverty in Ukraine, I am the eyewitness because I've seen it myself. How do I know that there's poverty? I've been in more than one old Soviet-era broken down home or apartment. I've talked to people myself. I've learned about how they live, about the challenges that they face. I have friends there, the kind of friends that spend much of their time out in their communities helping those same people. I talk to our partner ministers in Ukraine who live in communities around the country. I listen to what they tell me is happening in their own lives and the lives of the people that they help. So in my experience, so many people are still dealing with the same basic issues that have plagued them since 1995. The most vulnerable people still live like it's 1980. Sometimes it feels like 1880 when I see a home with no running water, no indoor plumbing, using a single old wood fire for heating and cooking. People in small villages, seniors, children, poor families, they live life without any hope of it ever getting any better. So, let's dig into a few more detailed explanations about why poverty still exists to the degree that it does in Ukraine. This isn't a complete dissertation on poverty. I'm not claiming to be an economist, a politician, or a social scientist. I just explain what I see from the average person's perspective. The first reason is power. Those that hold the reins of power, government, business leaders, they really care more about maintaining the status quo because that's what works for them. They don't care about how their decisions often affect the average, everyday Ukrainian. They fill their pockets while the innocent suffer. This causes huge economic inequality between this small exclusive group of people and the majority of people in the country that I've seen. I've seen the rich neighborhoods and the poor ones. Western countries consider Ukraine to be one of the most corrupt nations in the world. Apart from Russia's desire to keep Ukraine out of the EU and NATO, the hard truth is that the EU won't accept Ukraine as a member until they deal with their internal corruption and stabilize their economy. Second reason, mindset. The Ukrainian people have had such a short period of time in self-governance. Being subsumed by other nations is one of those things that's a part of their history and character. I mentioned these two things first, power and mindset, because I believe that they have a cascading effect on so many other things. Mindset, habits, they're hard to change. Sometimes you fall back on them even if you don't want to. If all you've ever experienced is authoritarian government, then you might want something else, but maybe you don't know exactly how to achieve it. You have no direct experience with it. Do you want to run for office? Yay, for once the system can work for you and you can build up money for yourself. On the flip side, do you want to look to your government for help? Why would you? Nothing has really changed. One of the biggest problems is that people in poverty experience this, hopelessness. You live with a certain sense of futility. You don't expect things to change. Why? Because they don't ever change. Year after year, it's all the same. You still don't have a job. Your pension still doesn't pay your bills. Your parents still rush you into early sexual activity so that someone else will be responsible to feed you. You still turn to drugs or alcohol to numb the pain. You know that you can't pay for your medicine, your surgery, or get good health care. You can't escape the poverty. If you do work, rather than working cooperatively to make the whole system better, you don't do that. You keep your money to yourself. You find occasional jobs when you need a little extra money. You keep that income out of the government's hands because you fundamentally don't trust them. Endless cyclical poverty is real. The third thing, today, crisis. Right now, in 2022, the Ukrainian economy is failing. Their currency is falling quickly. The exchange rate between US and their local currency is the highest that I've ever seen it. With fears of invasion, people are panicking. There's shortages of food, rapidly rising inflation. Our partners in Ukraine are starting to stockpile and distribute food to people in their nearby communities. They're very concerned about people starving, and of course they're concerned for their own safety and the safety of those around them that they help. But what does all this really mean? I'm sitting here in the West. We arguably, these days, have our own problems, do we not? More than we can count, it seems. So why do I care? Why should you care? We have two main goals on our channel. The first is that I want to inform people. Go beyond the simplified answers for those that want more detailed information. Secondly, I want to challenge you, our viewer, to take one small step beyond being informed to actually taking action, because I honestly believe that information and knowledge, they're empty without motivation or purpose. Purpose here, of course, is to make a difference in this dark and lonely world. I gave you 3 words or reasons to explain poverty in Ukraine. Now I want to give you 3 new words: purpose, connection, and hope. God gave me the power to choose my actions, the same as He gave you. I could just logically and mentally look at the tragedy occurring in Ukraine, believing that I really have nothing to make it any better. And on the level of an entire country, I don't. But I want to be the kind of person that takes action. Knowledge isn't enough for me. I'm not rich, but I can do something, and I can do it today. Purpose, connection, and hope. This is not just what we give to others when we help people in poverty. This is what we gain when we mentally go from passively attaining knowledge to engaging our heart and then acting on that knowledge. I don't have answers to these massive geopolitical maneuverings, but I can give hope to one person living in crisis. The really cool thing about purpose, hope, and connection is that this is the kind of gift that isn't a one-way street. The more that I give, the more that I have myself. You see, this is how I believe God created the world to operate best. We share the hope that we have with others when there's need. We share the hope that God gives us through Jesus Christ because it lasts beyond today, beyond the troubles of the moment. It doesn't remove the danger, it just helps us to move beyond it. I know this is exactly how our partners, the ministers that we work with in Ukraine, are responding to the current crisis. They are choosing to set aside their own fears, their own concerns. They're trusting God for their future, and they're showing others exactly how to do that. The very same. This is the best tool for breaking that cycle of poverty.
Тебя мы славим в этот час, Святая Троица, дай силы верить.
Alongside that, of course, it's unconscionable to have resources to provide food or blankets or other kinds of emergency aid and not give it to people who need it. Even if all I could ever do was help one person, I would still do that because that one person is worth it. Now that you know more about poverty in Ukraine, if you feel the same way that I do, that knowing is only the first step, if you want to join this battle against poverty in Ukraine, we welcome you. Subscribe to our channel to hear more from us about fighting poverty in Ukraine. You'll get notifications whenever we post new content. And if you really want to learn more about what Mission Partners is doing to fight this rising crisis, you can visit our website at www.mpiconnect.org. You can subscribe to our e-newsletter right there on our homepage. This is the best way to stay connected with us and be informed. You can check us out on Facebook, Instagram. We post interesting details about Ukraine as a country, stories about real people, and updates about the latest news. Remember to share purpose and connection and hope today. Thanks for watching. See you next time.